crisis, the judicial reform-related crisis, which is not an unsolvable one, is putting many dimensions of Israel on hold. Our economy, to some degree, is on hold. Investors are wary. They're concerned with the uncertainty. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's a great realization, not only in the protest side and not even in the center, that you saw there's a major change in public opinion. We need some degree of reform, but it's got to be moderate, incremental, slow. I think for political reasons, only political reasons, it's going to be very tough because materially, compromise is incredibly easy. The issue is saving face. The government doesn't want to be seen as losing, especially vis-a-vis their base, and the opposition doesn't trust the government. They think that the government just wants to lull them into sort of calming down, and then they'll break out. Regarding President Putin, indeed, I believe the war started on February 24th, was it? The day after, in one of my calls with President Zelensky, he asked me to begin. That was February 25th. President Zelensky asked if I could try and put him in touch. And keep in mind, we're talking about the very first 24 hours. Things looked very different then than they look now. Previously, I'd met President Putin in Sochi for a very long discussion, about 5 hours. And then we sort of formed a relationship. We had a bunch of interfaces. We have Syria as an issue, Iran. In parallel, I had urged both sides to move forward with on-ground negotiations, which began in Gomel in Belarus. Among the things I raised with him was indeed President Zelensky's personal security and the fact that, it's hard to negotiate when your life is at risk. Ukraine made a huge concession, which was to no longer demand to join NATO. Russia made two major concessions. One was the giving up replacement of leadership, which was one of the demands, and the other was the disarmament. They conceded the disarmament of Ukraine, which also was one of the preliminary objectives. Then there were the land issues of Donbass, Crimea. There were a bunch of other issues, and an issue of guarantees, of international guarantees, which they were negotiating what international guarantees they'd be willing to take or accept. And what I said and suggested and was adopted was, let's drop this model, use the Israeli model. Israel doesn't have guarantees from no one. No one will come and fight for us. What do we have? A good army. Very few people in Israel, in the region right now, believe in the two-state solution as a realistic approach for the near future. I said something else. I said, let's just reduce the degree of friction. Let's reduce the conflict. That was my policy de facto. What I did on my almost first day, first week certainly, I told the military and civil administration, bring in like an a la carte menu of everything that we can help, every request there is, and I want to go through it. And out of those 40 things, I think I approved on the spot about 15 of them or 17 of them. For about 15 years, not one Gazan employee could enter and work in Israel. And I thought that was a mistake. Now, there was considerable resistance in some of our security organizations. There was a fear that those workers would potentially conduct terror attacks in Israel, which I'm not dismissing. I'm not ignoring it. But I told the Shin Bet, okay, that's your job. I know it's not as exciting as the big conferences in Oslo and all that, but I believe that what I did as Prime Minister de facto was reduce the degree of conflict, reduce the degree of friction, and reduce the degree of problems. And basically, the principle should be yes, unless there's a security reason to say no. If you're a Haredi young man and you want to go out and work or study a vocation, get a job, you have to go to the army first. And if you're not willing to go to the army, you have to stay in yeshiva until the age of 26. That law exists because it's unfair to have a young Haredi go out and learn and work while my son, or me, for that matter, is out serving and risking our lives, etc., etc. What we need to do is decouple those two things. There's an issue of army service and an issue of economy and work. And my suggestion is to shelve for a while, let's call it a decade or 8 years, the issue of military service or national service, and exempt them. I would go down to the age of 21, perhaps even more. Right now, pass a law that says any Haredi at the age of 21 is free to go. I believe that using this vision, ultimately, if we're a bit more patient, a bit more incrementalist, in 20, 25 years, Haredim are going to work, pay taxes, not be a burden on society, and guess what? They're going to want to serve in the army.